I'm sorry. I got so caught up in this Marvel comic book. I just didn't realize the press conference had begun. This is amazing. It's a limited edition. It's exclusive. It's really special. It's amazing, but you can't just get it anywhere. You can only get it at a vaccination site, a Sumos vaccination site. And this is where we're going to help make kids safe and, like the Avengers, fight back against evil. In this case, evil is COVID. I think you figured that out.
But one day, I had a stomachache so bad, I didn't want to do anything. The team at New York Presbyterian said it was actually my heart. It was severely swollen. Something called myocarditis.
Let's talk about the vaccine.
Let's do it.
What are your thoughts on the vaccine now that we've hit the year 2022, heading up to 2023?
So not the same as I initially had. I was under the impression, I fully believe this, that by that winter, so what would that have been, like winter of 2021? I genuinely thought everyone was going to be dead that had it, or like the majority. I was literally thinking like, oh man, this is going to be horrendous. Anyway, so that came and it didn't happen. But the problem is that I actually know people that have been hurt from it or have even died after. So it's a tricky one because, you go out and about and everyone seems fine. Like they do, like genuinely. But at the same time, I'm aware that it could become a problem, especially because people are getting more. That's the thing. If people had just had one or two, and there were fallouts from like one, but if it was just one or two, I think that would have been fine. But they keep doing it, or they do in the UK anyway. I think they're on their like fourth or fifth rollout now. And again, it's a tricky one because I know like 90-year-olds and stuff that have had 5 or 4 and they're fine, but then I know other people that have had 2 or 3 and they're not fine. They're getting the same symptoms. So that there's this problem with the eyes that people are having that I know, bleeding from the eyes, retinas detaching, having to have operations and then detaching again. So I can't call this one. I don't think it's going to be some major catastrophe. I don't think they're safe. They shouldn't be giving them to children. And I think, they don't want this to end anytime soon because it's a complete and utter grift for them. They're making so much money. They're like novel vaccines, aren't they? Like the first of the kind, like mRNA. So that to me suggests they are up to something. I kind of have to go with my eyes on this one. I'm not seeing the majority of people that have had it heading for catastrophe. I'm a bit confused by it all, really. And I just think time will tell. But the thing that worries me the most is that they're just not stopping, and people just seem to go back as well. So it kind of made everyone feel that bad if they keep going back for more. You know what I mean?
When this whole thing started, I went back and started watching Alex Jones again. And I was like, this is going to be really interesting because I remember back in the day when I was listening to him, he was talking about all this. There's going to be a pandemic. There's going to be forced vaccinations. So I was like, all right, let me go back to Alex and just get some entertainment. And it was entertaining. This was everything he was waiting for. Just every day was just a new, thrilling, exciting adventure for him to be like, I'm right. And the predictions that he was making is one that everyone's going to die. There was going to be airplanes falling out of the sky constantly because all the pilots were going to be experiencing blood clots at the high altitude. As someone who was working in New York City at the time that they made the executive order, Bill de Blasio, whatever that douchebag's name was.
Did you say free fries when you get vaccinated? I got vaccinated. You're saying I could get these delicious fries? Wait a minute. But there's also a burger element to this. I want you to look at this and think about, again, some people love hamburgers, some don't. Really want to respect all ways of life. But if this is appealing to you, just think of this when you think of vaccination. Vaccination. I'm getting a very good feeling.
Did the executive order and every single private employee had to get it. I am one of 3 people that I know of that said no. And it was a really fun process saying no, because I got to like speak with my HR department, asking them to prove, or not to prove, but to give me a letter of termination, and they just refused. So you could just see all the illegal stuff happening in real time. They're like, no, you are resigning because you won't follow rules. I'm now out in Jersey. I've been out in Jersey working ever since. It's one of those cases where when one door closes, another one opens. I didn't miss a single week in pay. I just went straight on to another job in Jersey. Long story short, I'm surrounded and have been surrounded for some time by everyone who has gotten it. Everyone's fine. I don't know anybody who has died. I've heard of people who know people who have died. You're now another one of the people that I know that says they know people that have died. And it's a big amount of people in the New York City area that got it. And I'd figure at some point someone would be like, oh, did you hear so-and-so passed? Did you hear so-and-so is now dead? Granted, I'm not the most social person in the world, but I figure I would have had to hear of someone. There are hints around me that there are injuries, no deaths so far. And I go back to thinking about what Alex Jones was talking about. And he was presenting it as all these people are going to be shedding, and they are now bioweapons. So those of you who don't get it, be wary and be cautious, and don't even go near these other people because they're bioweapons and they can be a danger to you. And then you look at what the mainstream media was saying. Don't go near the unvaccinated people. They're dangerous. So it seemed, especially with his angle, it is a part of the divide and conquer method. One side is pushing all this fear, people are going to die, and the other side is like, well, these people are going to die because they won't get vaccinated. But from where I'm standing, one, I would never trust it. Not going to get it. Don't need it. You know, I still poke my head like once a month, maybe, just to like go through Alex Jones's website, see where they're at. They've got doctors coming on like, oh, it's coming. It's coming. They're all going to die. But then you have to start asking yourself, if you are a world leader and you've got all these individuals that will do everything that you say, do you really want to kill them, or would you want to keep those ones? It makes more sense to me that you're going to keep those ones. You want to get rid of the other ones that don't follow rules, that don't listen. So I am highly suspect of the vaccines. I'm sure there is an alternative agenda. And like you said, money at the very least. It is a cash cow. No reason you're going to want that to stop. You don't want to get rid of all those people and then just be left with the people who are like, we told you so. We're not getting it. Because then you have to deal with them. So that's where I stand on it. I think, yeah, we're just going to have to watch in real time, continue to see what happens. And I haven't seen anyone act any different who got it. From family members to friends, they're still the exact same person. Actually, I take that back. I did start working with a bunch of people who were getting it. I will say there was a bit more of a lull. People aren't really, not really with it. It's like they're kind of slower, but where we're at now, I'm not seeing that anymore. So I don't know if maybe that was just like an immediate effect or just kind of people coming back to work from being on lockdown for so long. But these days, I haven't run into that problem where people are just being kind of like stupid outside of their natural selves, which is already kind of stupid.
Yeah, that's a weird one because I did notice, again, not with everybody, but I did notice some kind of personality changes in some close friends and family. And then after a few months, it kind of seemed to subside. That could be for many reasons because, I mean, again, we don't know what's in it, really.
Can he name one of the ingredients in the vaccine?
Can he point to his gabella?
Then tell him to shut the up. The gabella's right here, by the way. I did know that because I'm a doctor.
But if it causes some kind of stress reaction in the body,
Grow the up and get the vaccine.
then yeah, you are probably gonna, like physiologically, you're gonna be stressed. So that might then manifest in personality changes or fatigue or whatever. One thing as well that's worth noting, just to go back to that point that you made, in the sense that, why would they want to kill everybody when, the majority of people are very useful to them? One thing that makes it very cloudy and hard to work out and kind of track is the different jabs that they've used. So, there were three or four main ones, wasn't there? So you had the Pfizer, Moderna, and then AstraZeneca, or I think you guys had a similar one, like Johnson and Johnson. I think China did their own, and Russia did their own as well. So again, in terms of geopolitics and things like that, if one nation gives most of their population a deadly jab that wipes them out, then you're going to have other nation states on your doorstep. But like I said, I think it's just too early to say. I've seen some bad stuff, and it can't be denied that the majority of people seem fine. It could be a case, actually, and this is kind of what I lean toward. I don't think, in terms of the most worst case scenario sort of catastrophe, but it wouldn't surprise me if these multiple jabs, one after the other, every 3 months or 6 months or whatever it is, does run people's immunity down. And then they end up with something that looks like a second pandemic. And then they can bring out solutions and more drugs that make you feel better and make more money. So it could be a case that, they're setting it up for a second pandemic. And then that way, other financial crises that are coming, businesses will go under, and then they can start absorbing businesses, absorbing wealth. And then it does look like we're en route to that World Economic Forum, the Great Reset, your own nothing and be happy type of thing. And there was modeling done on a smallpox pandemic, which would last until 2024. So it would fill that space from, now, this winter, until the election. And maybe that is what they're going to do. And maybe that's a result of these jabs. They just run down the immune system. It does look like you've got another pandemic, and then they can just start shutting things down. I don't know.
I remember walking through Central Park with my wife. I think, it was the summer they came out, and everyone it was just packed, and they were all shoulder to shoulder. And I think at this point I was still on marijuana. So I'd taken an edible, and I was walking through the park, and I was just looking at everyone. I remember turning to my wife and being like, this could really be it. This is the end for them. They're all going to be dropping dead in no time. And this weird moment of just them having relief and partying together is just the calm before the storm. I don't think that way anymore, but I remember that was a really crazy moment. Yeah, monkeypox, they were making it big out here in New York. People went and got vaccinated for it. I haven't heard anything of it since. And so now you got people that are jabbed up on multiple COVIDs plus the monkeypox. I'm not hearing any of them dropping dead, but I don't have a ton of friends in the alphabet community. I just know of some that I've worked with before. Another funny thing that I remembered was some Facebook virtue signaling at the time, where a former employee posted a video of her Band-Aid, and I think it was jab number 3. And the caption was, "Sick as a dog. My throat is completely dry. I can barely walk, but it's all worth it. Do your part," in all exclamation marks. She wasn't denying the fact that she was sick from the booster, but it just ended with that, "You better roll up your sleeve and do it too. We're all in this together." I'm like, you are absolutely nuttier than peanut butter, lady.
Surprise for people in Minnesota. They thought they were getting a COVID vaccine. Instead, they found out they actually got shots of saline.
Luckily, getting a shot of saline isn't harmful, but when you're expecting a vaccine that you've been waiting for months, that's probably not the call that you want to get.
Well, health officials say this only happened to a small number of patients.
That's kind of an intense thought that, yeah, maybe it was just like a mix of just all different vaccines. It's just like a game of Russian roulette that they were just putting out to the populations. Every other one's just going to straight up kill you. Other ones is just no problem. Just saline, you'd be all right. Maybe that is the ones that they're purposely giving the older people. And then the other ones could just be that in between actual mRNA vaccine that maybe does hook up to the 5G. Don't know. You had the Johnson & Johnson brand that was just quietly pulled here in America. They never really made a big fuss about that. I do know one person who got the Johnson & Johnson. And then there was a news story from Japan that they were finding contaminants in the Moderna vaccines, and they got rid of all of them. And I do remember going to Alex Jones because I knew he'd be talking about that one. And he was saying that, yeah, the mainstream media is just calling it contaminants. What's really going on is they're saying that they're finding heavy metals in it, and they were using magnets and swirling the vials, and they could see particles being pulled to it. Then that goes back to the videos of all the people who are putting magnets on their arm. Either way, I don't think the internet is a valid place for real legit information. It's a place you can go, keep an open mind, take in all the info that you can from it. Don't just stick to one source, and then make up your own mind at the end of the day.
What you were saying about there being sort of two sides of the same coin. And it is kind of true because, you know, the truther movement always say, oh, they lie about everything. You can't trust them. But loads of these doctors were saying that winter 2021, millions would die. And that didn't happen. And I know you can make excuses and say, yeah, well, you know, it's experimental and none of us really know. We're just living through it, you know, day by day. And that's very true. And don't get me wrong. I mean, I am on the side of these doctors are probably trying their best to just work out what it is in real time. And that must be very difficult and, you know, quite scary to speak out against something like that, you know, when the powers that be are pushing something so hard. But I think it does need to be that objective, fair assessment of information.
Where you were talking about the doctors coming out against this stuff, yeah, that's such a huge risk. Well, I do applaud those that rolled the dice and spoke out because we did need them. And like you said, there were a lot that made wild accusations. Everyone's dead by a certain time frame, and that time frame is passed. So again, that's where it's just kind of the two sides of the same coin. It's our side, the alternative side. They don't really demand accountability from those who get stuff wrong. They just want it. They want that accountability from the other team's side. And that goes back to that Jim Burr quote, the comedian Jim Burr. When you root for a team, your morals go out the window. And you see that on both the alternative /truther /conspiracy side, as you do with the mainstream. Let's talk about Donald Trump. Let's talk about Donald Mother effing Trump.
He is the father of the vaccine, Operation Warp Speed. You know, initially I liked Trump. I don't know whether it was because, you know, I do find him very funny. And, you know, his whole sort of presidency, especially like the first half with the press and stuff, it was just hilarious. And, you know, I used to stay up and watch his coronavirus briefings because it's just fascinating. But Trump's a weird one because I didn't expect him to lose to Biden. You know, as you go forward, these past events kind of, you get a bit more clarity about them. And it makes so much sense for that to happen. But I do think he's definitely going to come back, probably in a savior type role. The election, which I think is worth noting, because I don't think many people have really touched on this, or maybe they have and I haven't seen. But it was, during that time period, a very good excuse to shift a lot of people from certain social media platforms, you know, alienate them over into Telegram. So they were all in one place just before they started rolling out the jab, because they knew that all these thousands of people that are so active on social media would potentially, ruin it in terms of the jab or help spread more information about it. And I can't see it as anything but that. I don't think they actually banned these people because of the election, but I think it was a very good act, an excuse just to clear people, put them into Telegram so they've got their own little echo chamber. And then, the whole social media environment is kind of set up so they can roll out their jab and there's less dissent.
Gosh, it's really going to sound like I'm obsessed with Alex Jones and I watch a lot of Alex Jones. I'm really not. But I do keep up from time to time. And the big thing that happened recently was Alex Jones was saying, Trump, you need to come out and speak out against the vaccine. Because what he's seen in the mainstream is they're going to pin all of this on him when the people start dying.
The way the federal government has handled the vaccine, there are now serious questions about whether or not the vaccine is become politicized. The people of this country don't trust this federal government with this vaccine process. How can I say that? I didn't say it. Americans said it. 54% say they wouldn't take the vaccine yet. President is once again in a dispute with the FDA. FDA says they want to make the approval more rigorous, more transparent. President says they're trying to politicize it. So 54% of New Yorkers say they wouldn't take it. So the first question is the vaccine safe? Frankly, I'm not going to trust the federal government's opinion. And I wouldn't recommend to New Yorkers based on the federal government's opinion.
And Trump actually responded and he said, it was a great thing. I don't think it was a bad thing. It was wonderful, however Trump would say it. He loves himself, as you know. So I'm still getting comments and flack from a video that we did together where I say Trump is not a good person. And a lot of it is taking my words and trying to spin it back at me to make me seem like a hypocrite. Because I say, how can you come out here and talk about someone when you haven't shaken their hand? And that's what a lot of it is. Have you shaken Trump's hand? Yada, yada, yada. I have a video that I posted with a guest, Daryl Hardin, where I talk about working on the TV show Celebrity Apprentice. I haven't shaken Trump's hand, but I have been around him. He doesn't come off like the type of person that was friendly towards the crew. He wasn't evil towards the crew, but he really walked in a way like we were below him. This guy, on the other hand, I have shaken his hand. I worked directly with this guy. His name is Brett Ratner, and they're buddies. He talked about how they were buddies. I watched this man sexually assault a woman in an elevator. You know how this guy was talking about you grab him by the pussy?
Grab him by the pussy?
It's exactly what this guy was doing. This guy is nasty, and he's a little deviant, and he got called out in the Me Too movement for raping women, and he denied all of it. Tried to sue the women, I think, if I'm not mistaken. So they're buddies. This is the kind of company that this guy keeps. Shaking his hand. He's not a good person. And there was even one point where he was dating this girl. It was so weird. We were in the editing room. He invited me up, and I'm sitting there and watching him edit his movie. And this really attractive woman comes walking in, sits right next to me. I'm like, damn. And then he comes down, sits next to her, and just starts making out with her. I'm like shoulder to shoulder with her, and he's on the other seat just making out with her. I'm like, this is weird. I kind of experienced this type of thing when I was 16 and my buddies would be making out with someone. Felt really weird. He ended up getting her a job at Trump Tower, and he called up Trump personally, and Trump interviewed her, and he got her the job. Funny story, I actually ended up running into her again when I was working on Celebrity Apprentice. I was having to do lock-offs or blocks where, block-offs where we're blocking the doors because we're filming inside. And she comes up because she's going up to work. And she's like, oh, is Brett here? And I'm like, no, I don't work with him anymore. I'm back on Celebrity Apprentice. You got to go that way. I don't remember his name, but one of his lawyers at one point was a lawyer for one of the biggest mobsters in New York City. I don't think it was Gotti. It was another top tier guy. And you look at images of that lawyer and you see him, you're like, wow, that's how Disney draws evil people. So I stand by my claims. No, I have not shaken Trump's hand. I've been in his presence and I know the company he's around. So I wouldn't have said it if I didn't mean it. You had mentioned Trump coming back in that savior role because, like many people, there must be a savior complex. I see Trump as the powder keg that could really ignite this situation to a whole new level of bad for America. If there was to be an assassination of Trump, say he gets reelected, whether it be a fake assassination or a real assassination, all you would have to do is just send out a few troublemakers, some that are pro-Trump and upset he's dead, although there will be plenty of people that will be really upset that he's dead, and then you throw some Antifa members out there. It would be the easiest way to actually ignite a full-blown civil war because the media's already been talking about it. We're in a soft civil war right now. He can pop off at any day. He's the powder keg.
So do you know what's going to happen?
No. It was a feeling. But I can guess. There's so much chaos, someone will do something stupid. And when they do, things will turn nasty. Sutler will be forced to do the only thing he knows how to do. At which point, all V needs to do is keep his word. And then...
I feel confident that he is a part of the playbook and he's the trump card. He's one of the best cards they've ever released. And I'd see people coming through the comments and be like, but Trump woke so many people to the fake news. No. People already knew the news was fake. They were well aware. As soon as Trump came out and said fake news, I was like, oh my gosh, they gave him the fake news card. And what happened? Everyone had their savior. Hey, this guy's speaking my language. Yeah, because they already knew what your language was. They need to round up everyone and get them on a side. That's the whole point. The conspiracy group is super duper useful to all of this. And Trump kind of plays into that world as well.
I think civil war is certainly, I almost think it's a certainty, actually. So I think you're like bang on with that. But yeah, this guy, I wonder if I can share. Let me share my screen. Oh, you've disabled me. How rude.
No, I never enabled you. All right, you're good.
Yeah, this guy, Donnie Darkened. And he said, I was watching, because I found out about him from watching another live stream on some other dude's channel, and he was a guest. And he said that, he was really into Trump, like loved him. And, went to all these rallies and everything. Was really, really into it. But slowly stepped away. So if you're into these sort of things where, all these pattern finding and connecting the dots, but like 70 years, 7 months, and 7 days after Trump's birth, he would be inaugurated. So it's tracing all this symbolism. And what he does, the name Donnie Darkened, he thinks that in Donnie Darko, the film, there is a secret message that shows that Trump's going to be the Antichrist for the end times. So, I mean, we won't go for all this now. He says he's like Thingy's moonchild as well, Crowley's moonchild. He thinks that's Trump. But what's really interesting, I mean, it's worth taking this with a sort of, not seeing it as fact, or truth, But the thing that's interesting, there are weird coincidences and all this hidden in plain sight stuff that he's pulled apart. And he's got loads of threads on here. And, the Zionist connection with Trump. And, he's got videos saying that Trump's saying, I am the chosen one. So kind of showing his narcissism as well. So it's well worth looking for all this stuff, because I just spent like hours just sifting through this. It's quite addictive. But there's a lot there, I think, in terms of symbolism, and also Trump, the art of the comeback. So is he going to make a comeback? I think he will. And like you said, it's going to be a bit of a Trump card. And all the symbolism on the coins he's been minted on, 5G and all the WEF stuff. So it's very interesting. It's worth looking at.
Yeah, the Q pledge to me was one of the funniest things of the whole lot. And I do remember seeing video footage of Michael Flynn reciting the Q pledge. And of course, the first thing that went through my mind while I was watching all these people do it is the algorithms. And the algorithms are relatively intelligent. They know how to flag keywords. Certainly, they would know how to flag a pledge. So I was just like, wow, every single one of you is just willingly putting yourself on a list. And the best way to do that was just to get them to do it themselves and recite that pledge. So I thought that was kind of entertaining.
Yeah, the pledge. And there were so many things, wasn't there? That just, it goes back to what I was saying about the rise of Telegram, because they all got booted from a lot of these social media platforms and put them into an echo chamber. But one thing about the Q stuff as well, it's so subtle, not subtle, but it's quite manipulative. I suppose all psyops are, though, but because it was focused on the children and the sexual abuse of children and paedophilia and the trafficking, that is out of all of the stuff, all the topics of the conspiracy umbrella, I don't even think you can call the crimes against children a conspiracy. You can't, but that's the most important. So for me, it was very significant that was in, or that kind of made the backbone of the psyop, because that's one way you're going to get people invested in it. If you tell people that, or you open people's eyes to this whole world of child abuse, and then suggest that there is a team that involves Donald Trump that's taking these people out and down, you've got them. And so in a way, it's very manipulative, but also it's kind of, I think now, after enough time's gone by, I think people have probably realized it was always a psyop and it served a purpose. But I think at the time when people were in it, that was one of the reasons they got into it, was the children thing. Epstein got arrested. Maxwell, Me Too. There's a lot of stuff that is happening in terms of that sexual abuse. But then you've got the Nixium cult and all that stuff that happened as well, and the trafficking. So it does seem like there is something happening. Again, it could be scripted. It could be like a scripted awakening. Because that's kind of the way I say that the awakening, what people call it, is being engineered.
I don't think Epstein's dead, because there's so many people that I know that are not into conspiracy at all. We went to the moon. 9/11 was just as they told us. But when you ask them about Epstein, they're like, Epstein didn't kill himself. And that's how I know that story's not right, because they're open to this idea that there's a conspiracy and that he was murdered, and therefore they probably have the information wrong. So I think he's still alive, because I'm not going to agree with those people on their version of a conspiracy. It's all you got to one up them, because they're the normies.
Maybe that would be like a plot twist in the big movie, that he will actually get arrested again. It was all a big stunt.